Hey, everybody, welcome to the Travel Nursing and Allied Life podcast brought to you by TravCon. My name is Steve Curtin. I'm the CEO of the Gypsy Nurse and TravCon. And thank you for joining us for today's podcast. We have a special guest today. We have Bridget Donahue from Prolink. She is the recruitment director. Bridget, welcome.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
Great to have you with us and look forward to seeing you and the rest of the fantastic Prolink team at TravCon. The title of today's podcast is Navigating the Allied Travel Boom, Insights from Prolink's Recruiting Director. So, Bridget, we're going to talk all things Allied today and Allied travel healthcare, which we know is really a kind of a major topic in healthcare travel today. But first, why don't you tell us a little bit about Prolink and Prolink's mission and some of the things that you guys do, as well as a little bit of your journey as a recruitment director.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll start off by talking a little bit about Prolink. So we were founded 13 years ago. Our founders, Tony and Mike Monifo, they're brothers. Their father was sick. And so they were in and out of hospitals and out of healthcare facilities with their family and support network. And really through that journey and through that experience, they really saw firsthand how healthcare clinicians, whether that's nurses, allied professionals, really impact not just the patient and their journey, but their support network and their families. And so they really saw an opportunity in the space. And so Prolink was founded back 13 years ago. And what's really cool to me is we fast forward 13 years later, not only are we a national workforce solutions company, with thousands of healthcare clinicians and resource professionals on assignment each and every day, impacting patients and their care. But we offer a wide variety of options for our talent. So not just geographically, right? We are everywhere from New York, Florida, Hawaii, Alaska. So pretty much anywhere that a nurse would want to go throughout the US or an allied professional, we have that opportunity. But really, what do you want your next career opportunity to look like, right? Is it a travel assignment? Is it, hey, I want to take on a travel assignment, but maybe I would want to end up going permanently with that client. Yeah. Maybe you're only looking at permanent opportunities. Prolink can offer any of those opportunities. So I think that's one of the biggest things for me, not just all of the areas where we support our clients throughout the country, but really, whatever you want your next career opportunity to look like, whether that's a contract, travel contract, a permanent opportunity, we can help provide that for you.
And how did you become involved with Prolink?
Great question. So I started off in the industry about a decade ago as an entry-level recruiter. And I came out of school with a marketing degree. I wasn't totally sure. Ironically, most of my good friends from college are nurses or nurse practitioners themselves. And I wasn't sure, what I wanted to get into within the marketing space. And I started working for a global workforce solutions company as an entry-level recruiter. And I just fell in love with it. I loved that I was helping people connect what they wanted to do every day, helping people find their next career opportunity. There's people that I placed on, an assignment almost 10 years ago that still reach out to me on LinkedIn and saying like, thank you for, allowing me to get to, my dream job or the city that I always wanted to live in. And so while it's a very dynamic industry, there's always a lot of moving pieces. It can be stressful at times. I can't imagine ever doing anything else. So I started off as a recruiter. I've led teams of recruiters. I've been, working with a variety of clients over the past decade in, sales and account management roles. And now I'm one of the recruitment directors here at Prolink.
That's awesome. Well, it's great that you have that background and connection with the recruitment side, as well as having folks that you have made relationships with over the years that are obviously healthcare practitioners. One of the things that we want to talk about today, obviously, is the growing need for allied travelers. I know that that's one of the things that Prolink specializes in. From our perspective at TravCon and the Gypsy Nurse, we have a connection, obviously, with thousands of travelers across the United States, and we certainly see the growing need for folks in the allied areas. And I'll use the term broadly in terms of allied. Obviously, that can be PTs and OTs and COTAs and so forth, right through techs and others. But we're certainly seeing a a rising need for it. Wonder if you could give a little bit of perspective on that, what you're seeing from ProLink's perspective in terms of recruitment, some of the opportunities. Obviously, the opportunities certainly around pay as well. We know the pay is increasing in those areas. So I'd love to get your perspective on that growth.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a very exciting time to be an allied clinician. And what I like to say is allied is the new nursing when it comes to travel. Over the past 12 months, really, whether it's in therapy, surgical services, really imaging, we have seen the demand for these skill sets really skyrocket. And it's not even within like a certain geography, it's really across the board nationwide. We have really seen the demand increase substantially for these positions. So, really, across all of the facets of allied, especially what we're seeing right now is imaging. Hospitals and ambulatory centers are really in need of qualified imaging clinicians. So whether that's CT techs, rad techs, MRI techs, the wide array of ultrasound techs, so mammo techs, echo techs, general ultrasound. It's a really great time if you have that skill set to get into the travel space, or even if you're looking for a local contract, it's a really great time to get into the space because there's such a need. And so if there's ever a city that you've been looking to go to, a hospital that you've been looking to work at, it's a really great time to get into the space.
I loved how you phrased that allied is kind of the new travel nursing, because yeah, it certainly seems like it again, it continues to grow. What do you attribute the growing need to? I mean, obviously there's an aging population and people living longer and so forth. Anything else that you would observe relative to the rising demand for people in the allied sectors?
Absolutely. I think it's a couple of things. So when we look at, the post-COVID era that we are in, there's definitely been a rise back in, elective surgeries, in imaging needs, right? And people going into facilities to get that care. And so we're really attributing a lot of that, and hospitals really getting back to their surgical services, their elective surgeries, all of the lab work, all of the imaging work that needs to take place on a day-to-day basis. That's really a focus now for a lot of hospitals. So that's why we're seeing such an uptick. I would also say we're going to see a further uptick in Q4 of this year, right? People going in for surgeries before the end of the year,
Mm.
people maybe needing to meet their deductible from a healthcare perspective. And so not only are the needs extremely high right now and demand's really high, we're going to continue to see a large increase here through Q4.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Particularly with people in Q4 trying to meet their insurance deductibles and so forth, and kind of getting those procedures and imaging and stuff done, before the end of the year. So that's a
Absolutely.
very astute observation. You touched on it earlier, but I want to dig in a little bit more regarding some of the in-demand allied skill sets out there. What opportunities are out there. Talk a little bit more about locations as well. Obviously, that's location, just like real estate, right? Location is very important when it comes to travel healthcare. But would like to find a little bit more about, from your perspective, what are some of the specific in-demand allied skill sets, as well as some of the locations that might be out there that people might be interested in.
Absolutely. So the first one that sticks out to me in the imaging space is CT techs. There are so many open CT tech opportunities. And what we're finding right now is that because they're so in demand, we are really able to work with the clinicians on what's going to work for them, right? Do you want a 4-week contract, an 8-week contract, a 13-week contract with the possibility of extension? What do you need your hours to look like, right? So whereas, a year ago, it may have been very rigid, hey, you have to work this shift. If you want to work a 36-hour a week schedule, a 48-hour work week, we're seeing a lot more flexibility in what
Mm.
hospitals and ambulatory centers are willing to offer in order to get the right talent in the door. So keep that in mind up front if you're an imaging clinician looking for a new opportunity. Don't think just because a posting is listed as, hey, 48 hours, reach out to that recruiter. I know here at Prolink, we are really willing to be flexible. If you've got the right skills, at least getting your resume in front of the hospitals of your choice to say, hey, this is a great clinician. Here's what they're willing to work. Are you able to make that work? And we're finding right now, because of the demand, that they're able to make that happen. So that would be a big piece of advice. As far as location, we here at Prolink have CT tech openings, rad tech openings, MRI tech openings. pretty much in all 50 states, whether it's Hawaii, Texas, Arizona. New York is a really big one right now.
Hmm.
Across the Midwest, we have a lot of openings in Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio. And then, of course, as we get into Q4, the weather gets a little bit colder. Talent tend to want opportunities, whether it's in Arizona or Florida and Texas, and we certainly have availability there as well.
Yeah, I would like to talk a little bit more about geography just for a moment because when we talk about travel and you have some of the popular locations as you just mentioned, but I think there is some merit to some of the more offbeat locations, I guess. So,
Mhm.
one of the things that we see in our discussion groups in the Gypsy Nurse is people that, in the wintertime may want to go to Vermont because they love skiing, or
Yeah.
they don't necessarily want the big city. They want something that's kind of quiet and more sedate. So just given your background in recruitment and the years that you spent in the
Mhm.
business, I'm just any favorite kind of quirky locations or offbeat locations or anything you might want to suggest in terms of people keeping an open mind about where to go.
So I have to give a shameless plug to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is
Ah,
beautiful, right on Lake Michigan. Amazing hospital networks, great
yeah,
hospital networks to have on your resume.
yeah,
So, and I love what you said about that because I think sometimes people think of, travel and only think of kind of the popular destinations.
yes,
If I were, an allied professional looking for a new opportunity, I would have my list of like top locations that I want to go to, but also look at, okay, why is that? So let's say, someone's looking to get to Florida because they want the warm weather. Have you considered Texas? Have you considered Arizona?
hmm,
Have you considered Southern California?
yeah,
Or, hey, I want to be in Colorado because I like hiking in the mountains. Have you considered Pennsylvania? Have you considered somewhere along the Rockies? So really not limiting yourself to just, one or two locations, but really looking at, okay, why am I interested in this top location? Kind of having that like top list of where you want to go. And then where are you willing to go? Because
yeah,
what we're also finding with some of the locations, even in the Midwest, you can get some really great weekly gross pay packages. And again, the cost of living isn't nearly as high as you may find on the coast.
great
So,
point.
my biggest advice to talent is have kind of your list ready of where do you really want to go, but then where are you willing to go, and not writing off places that don't seem as desirable up front because they could be offering a really nice pay package. The area could be really beautiful. So, definitely do your research, but keep an open mind when you're looking at location.
Yeah, great advice because I think obviously the other part of travel is pay, right? And uh, depending on the location, sometimes you do want to kind of maximize your pay and
Mhm.
minimize your expenses. And you're right, some of those smaller cities or smaller towns, you're going to get more bang for the buck when it comes to your paycheck. Speaking of paychecks, I know this is a very broad statement, but what what can people expect, for particular disciplines, or what are some of the highlighted numbers for particular disciplines when it comes to hourly pay or weekly pay or those sorts of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So just going back to our other talking point really quick,
Yeah.
we just ran some interesting statistics here at ProLink. And what we found is that for all of our clinicians on assignment, 45% of them are working in the state where their home address is, which is
Oh,
really interesting because
sure.
even if we look at a year ago, that number looked totally different. So I think with just, the state of the market right now, people are maybe not traveling as far as they maybe used to, so they're really maybe going, somewhere within their own state or maybe just
Hmm.
one state over. So that's been something really interesting that we've seen with our clinicians currently, or what we've been seeing over the past few months. As far as pay goes, so obviously it's still going to depend on the geographic location of the
Sure.
facility.
Hmm.
It's also going to depend on the level of the hospital, right? So a level one trauma facility is going to pay more because they're expecting a different type of experience than maybe a hospital that isn't a level one trauma facility. We are seeing right now for CT techs, 2,800 and above weekly gross. We even have opportunities with ProLink right now that are paying 3,100, 3,200 a week. So when we look at that pay package versus what would have been there a year ago, it's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
And looking at the opportunity that you have. So I would, my advice, if you are an imaging clinician, even if you're not looking to travel to a new state, really consider, travel contracts, even if it's just a different city in your state. It's a really great opportunity to enter the travel workforce because of the premiums that are being paid right now.
Are the assignment lengths for allied similar to travel nursing, where you're seeing on average 13-week assignments?
13 weeks is still the norm. What I would say is, so there's still a lot of flexibility. So we
Yeah.
offer contracts that are 4 weeks, which our talent loves, so that they can work somewhere a month, maybe take a little bit of time off, then work another 4 week assignment. We have 8 week assignments, 10 week assignments. So going back to what I said earlier, because the demand is so high, allied talent really has the opportunity to go to a recruiter and say, hey, this is what's going to work for me. Where do you have these openings? It's not as strict as before. It was really that 13-week contract. We're seeing anywhere from 4 weeks all the way up until 13 weeks. And then there's certain skill sets, for example, our allied clinicians working in schools, that's more of like your 26-week contract, or really following that school year. But yeah, it's really pretty diverse in terms of the different contract options that are out there right now.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have that many options in terms of length of time and so forth. I mean, that's always a very attractive item for travelers. Let's talk a little bit about as a traveler, and particularly an allied traveler, how to make yourself more marketable, if you will, when it comes to um, having your credentials being brought forth to a facility. Do you have any advice in terms of just like any other job seeker, how to make yourself more marketable when it comes to allied travel?
I do, and it's so funny. I do this for a living. And, in the past, when I've had to update my resume or my CV, I'm like, I don't know where to start. And I do this for a living. So it can be an overwhelming process, but we're definitely here to help you with that. So when it comes to, your resume and what you're presenting to either a recruiter or a hiring manager, two things that they're really going to be looking for. One is going to be your years of experience, and
Yeah.
two is going to be your active certification. So sometimes what I find is that talent puts their certifications all the way at the bottom of their resume. I really recommend that you put that up at the very top, because they're going to want to see what your active certifications are.
Okay.
Also, make sure if you have a certification that's pending, that you're also putting that on your resume and listing that it's pending. So maybe, you're waiting for a license to come through. Make sure that you're putting that on your resume. Making sure that you're listing out all of the states that you're certified in, especially, within imaging, within labs, surgical services. Some positions will require a state license, others won't. So really listing out all of the states where you are licensed, that's really going to help a recruiter or a hiring manager to understand, would you need to obtain a license, or do you already have one in hand? So I would say those are the two biggest things, making sure that you have your certifications listed at the top of your resume, your years of experience. Also making sure, if you've traveled with multiple agencies, don't just list the agency on your resume. Make sure that you're listing the hospital and the level of the hospital that it is.
Yes.
When we're going through resumes, we want to make sure we understand what level facilities you've worked at. The patient populations that you've been working with is super important, so we can understand exactly what roles that you're going to be a fit for. So that's really important to have on your resume. And then something that I always tell talent, make your resume unique, right? Hiring managers want to see, what do you enjoy doing in your free time? What are you passionate about? So putting a quick summary at the top to talk about those things, it can really help to differentiate your candidate profile too.
Great advice, great information. I want to touch a little bit more on the experience part of it. I know that in travel nursing, historically, usually facilities are looking for somebody with at least 2 years of nursing experience in general. For allied, are they still look? I mean, obviously, experience is important, but
Mhm.
given the demand in today's market, are facilities taking people with a little bit less experience in some of the more popular allied areas?
I would say 2 years is still the minimum requirement. We are
Okay.
seeing some situations where they may take someone with like 1 year and 9 months of experience, or a
Yeah.
year and a half if they've maybe worked at, a level one or level two facility. So
Okay.
definitely still speak with, your recruiter if you're like, I'm right on the cusp. How can I present my profile? Would they, still be willing to consider me? Again, if you're anywhere with between like a year and a half and 2 years of experience, definitely talk to a recruiter and see what options there's available for you.
Okay. And speaking of talking with recruiters, any advice for somebody in the allied area that is looking to get involved in travel, and how they can start out in terms of working with a recruiter? I mean, you mentioned their CV and the certifications and so forth, but just in terms of working with a recruiter for the first time, what are some things that make it easy to kind of develop that relationship between the traveler and the recruiter?
We'll definitely come to ProLink. No, I'm just kidding. Um, what I would say is obviously allied skill sets are very in demand right now. So I'm sure even if somebody doesn't have travel experience, they're probably being emailed, texted, or called by recruiters. What I really encourage you to do, even if you are not on the market today, but you may be a few months from now, start building that relationship with a recruiter now. They're going to have that introductory call with you to talk about, again, like I talked about, where are your desired locations, where are you willing to go, what kind of shift schedule do you want, what kind of
Yeah.
hospital do you want to be working at? Do you want to be at a level one, super fast paced facility, or do you want something that's different? Because that way, what's going to happen is, over the next couple of months, that recruiter is going to keep you in mind for any roles that may become available. I look here at ProLink. We have hundreds and hundreds of jobs that are, active on a day-to-day basis that we're working with our clients on. And so even if the right role isn't here today, still take the call with that recruiter, get to know them, build that relationship, because you never know down the road you may change your mind on what you're looking for. And if you're in a position where you're then looking for an opportunity, you'll definitely want to have that relationship built. So I think my biggest piece of advice is, even if you're not looking today, or you're not sure if you want to get into the travel space or not, take that phone call from that recruiter, reach out, build that relationship, and it's really going to help you out in the long run.
Yeah, great advice, and I think that has been true forever in the travel healthcare industry in terms of the communication, building the relationship. Because let's face it, somebody may be working now, or as you said, there may not be something that that they're interested in now. But 3 months from now, 6 months from now, that recruiter and that traveler can connect, and there may be an opportunity, and it can be the beginning of a great, professional relationship going forward. But I think staffing, as we all know, it's a very now type of business, and I think
Mhm.
sometimes to kind of look at that long term connection can be just as important.
And something I find that's so unique to the healthcare space, I continue to be so amazed with just the level of the relationship between the
Yeah,
clinician and their recruiter. There's recruiters here that have worked with the same talent for 8 years now. You think about that,
yeah,
and celebrate, each other's birthdays. And, we have recruiters that go to, you know, a wedding, for example, of, one of their clinicians' daughters. I mean, it's just really cool how it starts off as finding a job opportunity, but it develops into so much more than that.
yeah.
And I know if I was in, the allied space, I'd want to really build that relationship with one recruiter, because it is such a big deal, right? You're finding your next opportunities, you're putting a lot of trust in them. And so
Yeah.
it's just really amazing to me, the relationships that develop between a recruiter and the talent that they're working with every day.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of connection and developing relationships and meeting people and so forth, you and the fabulous ProLink team will be at TravCon. We're looking forward to
We are
seeing you
so
guys
excited.
out at TravCon. Yes, and just in case people have forgotten or haven't bought their tickets yet, uh, this year's Healthcare Traveler Conference, or TravCon, is September 22nd through the 25th. So it's right around the corner, but you can still get tickets if you want. September 22nd through 25th in beautiful Las Vegas, fun Las Vegas, and it's going to be at the Paris Hotel. But yeah, Bridget, we look forward to seeing you and the rest of your great team there, and it will give people an opportunity to come meet you guys in person and connect and have discussions about the fantastic opportunities that are out there through ProLink. And I understand this is going to be your first TravCon.
It will be my first time at TravCon and my first time in Las Vegas. So I am traveling with a group of Prolinkers. A lot of them have been before, and they are like, this is my favorite week of the entire year. So we're going to have a booth. We're going to have giveaways and raffles. We'll have a bunch of our recruiters there to talk about, current and near current opportunities. We're going to be at some of the workshops and some of the sessions. So we're going to be wearing our bright orange and blue Prolink t-shirts. So definitely stop by and come meet us.
No, nobody would be able to miss you with those bright T-shirts, right?
Yeah. The bright orange, you can't miss it.
Yeah, well, and the wonderful thing about TravCon, this is actually the 16th year
It's
that
incredible.
TravCon has been around. So it's been, it is the travel healthcare event of the year. But going back to the allied theme, I think people used to think of TravCon as primarily a travel nursing event, and in fact, it's not. It's really for all healthcare travelers, and in particular, the number of allied travelers that attend each year continues to grow. So this year, we're expecting well over 25% of all of our attendees to be allied travelers. So it's a
It's
great
amazing.
connection to today's topic. And yeah, sounds like allied travelers at TravCon. You're going to want to go by and say hello to Bridget and the rest of the fabulous ProLink team. So
We'd love
wonderful
to meet you.
opportunity
Come
for
over,
us.
win a prize, get some ProLink swag. We'd love to meet you and help you on your next opportunity.
Sounds great. Well, Bridget, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today on the on our podcast. We really look forward to seeing you and the rest of the ProLink team in person. If people want to find out more about ProLink, explore the opportunities and so forth that you guys have prior to the conference, how can they find out about you?
Great question. So first and foremost, our website gives talent all of the information on ProLink, who we are as a company, any of our open jobs. I would also recommend that you follow our social media channels. We have a very large presence on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. So definitely give us a follow and look at what we're doing.
Fantastic. Well, again, we look forward to seeing you out at TravCon. And that's going to be it for today's podcast. Again, I'm Steve Curtin, the CEO of the Gypsy Nurse and TravCon, and this has been Bridget Donahue, the Director of Recruitment at Prolink Staffing. So we look forward to seeing you and the team out there. And again, thank you for taking the time, Bridget.
Of course. So nice to meet you.